Our next session, so hear about EV ownership firsthand and learn about valuable resources for EV owners in our next session, Living the Electric Dream, a day in the life of an EV owner. Our first presenter is Janine Rutledge, an EV owner and member of the Electric Vehicle Association of Alberta. Janine bought her first electric car in 2015. It was a 2013 Nissan Leaf from her father-in-law. From the moment she test drove her first electric vehicle, she was hooked. In 2019, her household went full electric when her husband got his Tesla. Janine, over to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Janine Rutledge, and I've been driving an electric vehicle for 7 years. Yes, in Edmonton. Yes, in minus 40-degree weather. Yes, that's me. Humor me for a minute and think to yourself, if I was to buy a new car today, what would be my number one motivation or desire? Is it luxury? Is it economical? Is it utility? Or is it size? Now, everyone has their own desires and motivations when buying a new car. Mine has always been something economical. Cost savings has always been something that stands out first and foremost in my decision making. That's why when in 2015 I took my father-in-law's 2013 Nissan Leaf for a drive, I was sold. I don't have kids. I needed the car primarily for city driving. Going to and from work, grocery shopping, family visits, that's my driving. Was it zippy? Yes. Did I love that? Yes. Was it not too big and not too small? Yes. It was perfect. 140 kilometers. That was the distance my car could go on a full charge. My journey started when my father-in-law brought back a Nissan Leaf from Seattle and thought that I would really enjoy it. He was right. I drove my Leaf for 4 years, loving every minute of it. At the time, we were a two-car household, and our second car was a Honda Civic. The Nissan Leaf was our entry-level EV, dipping our toes into electric vehicles. It cost me $15,500 and was 2 years old. But funny thing is once you have an electric car, it becomes your go-to mode of transportation. My husband is a teacher as well, and during the summer, his Civic would sit untouched in the garage for weeks because we would use the more cost-efficient Nissan Leaf to get around the city, and it's fun to drive. In 2019, my husband turned 40 years old, and his car motivations are different than mine. He got a Tesla 3 for his birthday. He likes shiny things. I sold my Nissan Leaf in 2020 during the pandemic while I was on a deferred salary year, and we only needed one car for the year. I knew that my next vehicle would definitely be electric, but what next? I researched what was available in the used electric vehicle market, watching YouTube videos and reading articles. I knew I was looking for something used and electric. I was hoping for something newer and with more range than the Leaf. I figured it would be an upgrade, and of course, after having a heated steering wheel and seats, that was on the short list of wants. I considered the Kia Soul, a newer Leaf, and the Hyundai Ioniq Electric. Used electric cars are hard to find in Alberta, so I started looking in BC, Washington State, Saskatchewan, and then Canada-wide. I researched how much it would cost to ship my car from another province. There is more inventory of electric vehicles in BC, Quebec, and Ontario because these provinces offer more provincial rebates and incentives to consumers to drive electric vehicles. These rebates end up getting passed down to the consumer in the used market. After settling on certain models of cars that I was interested in, I would seek out these vehicles to test drive them here in Edmonton, just to make sure it was a good fit. You might ask why, if available, wouldn't I just buy from Edmonton? Number one, inventory is low. Your options are very limited. Number two, prices are high because of low inventory. The market for used EVs is just better in different provinces. I ended up settling on a 2019 Hyundai Ioniq with 49,000 kilometers on it from Beauce, Quebec. The price on the car in 2021 was $18,860, and it cost me $1,900 to ship. Surprisingly, shipping a car from Quebec isn't as expensive as one would think. Did you know you don't have to pay PST when buying from another province? I didn't either. But it was a definite bonus from buying from Alberta. You end up paying just the GST. It took about a month for my car to arrive in Alberta. What you learned when you buy an electric car is that range is not black or white. It's not finite. There's a lot of gray area, and when you're talking about range. How fast are you driving? How slow are you driving? Are you driving through the city? Are you using highways? How aggressive are you driving? Do you have the heat on? Do you have the AC on? What kind of tires are you driving on? What is the temperature outside? It all impacts how far you can go on a charge. When you drive electric, you think differently about your gas gauge or how much charge you have. You think about what you're planning to do tomorrow. And really, if you think about it, it's something we already innately do. You're just a little more aware of it as an electric car owner. You're thinking, what am I up to tomorrow? Am I going to my parents' house, grocery shopping? You can probably tell me how much fuel is in your gas tank right now. I can do the same. I can tell you how much charge is in my car. There are stages that a car owner goes through when they own an electric car. The beginning electric car driver, you are cautious. You are plugging in often, probably more than you need to, just in case. Chances are you always have a full battery, and it's fun and novel to plug in your car. You are an eager beaver. Then you get to the challenge is accepted electric car driver. Now you're pushing the limits. You're seeing how far you can go. You're getting home with double lines on a charge left, which really means almost empty. You're relishing the fact that you're taking your car to the limits. Then sometimes you get overconfident. I was overconfident one time. I decided I could drive to Sherwood Park with under 40 kilometers left on the highway. It was a snap decision that led me to the Nissan charging station in Sherwood Park and wandering around Sherwood Park businesses for an hour or two, waiting for enough charge so that I could get home. Lesson learned, know your limits. One of the biggest questions I get from others is, how long does it take your car to charge? And really, I can't answer that question. I'll ask you a question. How long does it take your phone to charge? I think of my car like my cell phone. I plug it in when it needs to be charged. I usually plug my car in when I get home from work. My phone, I plug it in before bed, and in the morning I have a full charge on both my car and on my phone, and I'm good to go. I do have a charger at home in my garage, which allows me to charge whenever I want. I charge on average about one time every week. I have comfortable limits that work for me. When my car gets down to about 40 kilometers, I know it's time to plug in. I can plug in at work. I do plug in at work. I can plug in wherever there is an electrical outlet available. And the charging speeds vary depending on the amount of power going to the outlet. But a regular outlet is the slowest form of charging. I use an app called PlugShare to look for available charging stations in the city. I've charged at the library, IKEA, Mountain Equipment Co-op, Southgate, Canadian Tire, and Simon's. They are becoming more readily available. I don't rely on these places for electricity, but it is a definite bonus when there are charging stations available, because a lot of them are free. So it's definitely worth plugging in to gain some extra electrons while I'm out and about. When people moved from horses to cars, it was a big change. It didn't work for everyone. It was a big jump. What was a tire? What was an engine? How do you start it? It is a big change for people. But when you made the change, you learned how to make it work for you. Moving to an EV is kind of the same jump. How far can I travel? How long does it take to charge? How do I charge? What are the benefits? But a big difference is that now we have the internet and a shared experience of many others who have come before us to share and learn from. So the jump isn't as big as one thinks it is. I have benefited from my involvement with the Electric Vehicle Association of Alberta, or EVAA. I have made many friends and have learned lots from its community. A lot of people don't know that there are other electric car options out there that are not just Teslas. More are coming on the market every year, increasing the variety of options out there. One should definitely consider their options other than just assuming that electric cars are just too darn expensive. The used market is growing. Things I really enjoy about my EV. Number one, I never have to fill up on gas or line up at a gas station in minus 40-degree weather or ever. Number two, it's really zippy, it's quick, and it's fun to drive. Number three, I can charge at work, home, just about anywhere. Number four, I don't have to pay for gas. I don't worry about gas prices at all. Number five, it's something cool to talk about with others. At least I think so. Number six, it's better for the environment. I know with certainty that our family will never own a gas vehicle again. As a teacher and an aunt, I'm very aware of my environmental impact and carbon footprint. I encourage you to chat with people who drive electric cars in our community. They're quite kind, knowledgeable, and willing to help. Go for a test drive, check out your options. There just might be an electric vehicle that's right for you. I'm very honored to be sitting on a panel with women in electric vehicles today. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Janine. A quick note. So while we're going through the presentations, everyone start to think about your questions. We'll hold them to the end, and then Steph will be coming around to take questions from everyone. So our next presenter is Angie Dean. Angie has been the president of the Tesla Owners Club of Alberta, TOCA, since 2019, connecting with Tesla executives and other club leaders from around the world, advocating for and educating the public on EVs and sustainable living. Angie.
Thank you. Hopefully that works. So welcome. I am Angie Dean. I'm the president of the Tesla Owners Club for about the last 3 years now. So I just kind of want to go through my origin story and how I got to become not just president of this Owners Club, but a Tesla enthusiast and a supporter of all electric vehicles. And it really comes back to this. Tesla's mission is not to be the most profitable car company or to be the biggest car company in the world. It's to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And when I heard about this, I met someone in 2016. My origin story is a lot like most people's. I met someone that owned a Tesla. And once you know, you can't not know. So once I heard about this mission, I just kind of fell in love with the ideals that Tesla had, and I knew I had to get involved. So, like most people, my first thought was I can't afford a Tesla, so what am I going to do? So I started looking into it. I went there. They used to have a store in Chinook Mall in Calgary, so I went down there and I said, you know, this Model 3 is coming out. You know, how do I get on the list for that? I was a little late to the game. There was already hundreds of thousands of people on the wait list for it. Sorry. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to have to save up and wait for it. And the guy in the showroom said, I'm not commissioned, but just go home and figure out what you're paying for gas and oil changes and a car payment and see what happens. So I did. I made a spreadsheet because I'm a nerd. And I figured out exactly what the cost was, and I added everything up bi-weekly. If I averaged it out over 8 years instead of 4, which was the loan period for my Hyundai that I was driving then it was actually the same out-of-pocket cost because electricity is so much cheaper than gas and oil changes and everything. So I knew I had to do it. And I came home one night, I was talking to my Tesla person, and he said, just put in the order. You can always cancel it. So I did. And it was very exciting until I started telling people that I had ordered a Tesla. And it was not the reaction I was expecting. People thought I was crazy. Like, it's 2016. Those things don't work here. That company's going bankrupt. Every headline I see says they're going bankrupt, like in 3 months. So you really shouldn't be doing this. And I started not wanting to tell people because I didn't have time every time I was having this conversation to explain all of my reasons. No, I made a spreadsheet. I swear it's going to work. So I wrote a blog. It was a defense, really, why I bought a Tesla. I mean, how many people have written a blog defending their choice to buy a car? Well, I did. And it's long. You're free to Google it and read it if you want to. But I felt the need to justify why, as a civil servant and a single parent, I was buying this super expensive, crazy, futuristic car. But I had to. Once I knew about this company, and it felt like it fit my core values, I knew I had to get involved. So I was investing. This car was an investment. Probably should have bought the stock. It'd be worth a lot more right now, but I didn't. I needed a car, so that's fine. So, oh, that was really loud, sorry. What has it been like? So this was 6 years ago now that I ordered this car. These are probably some of the most common questions that I get. So I have a 40 amp plug at home, a dryer plug, stove plug, very common. I have a 100 amp panel. That's another question that a lot of people ask. Do I need a 200 amp panel? No. It's never not been enough. For most people, you're driving probably less than 100 kilometers a day, running errands, commuting, whatever. Come home, I'm getting about 36 kilometers, well, on my old car, I was getting about 36 kilometers of range per hour. So 2-3 hours and the car's fully charged again. I can tell it to charge at 2 a.m. or whenever I want to. So that's one of the most common questions. My power bills, because of course I'm a nerd, I have a spreadsheet. They went up by about $35 per month. I was commuting about 50 kilometers a day, so that kind of gives you a rough idea of how that breaks down. And then road trips, that's another question. I love it. The first year I got the car, we drove it almost all the way to Mexico. We just dove in and went for it, and it was the best road trip I've ever had. I thought I was going to get sick of having to stop and charge, but the great thing about it is, well, first of all, the car just tells you where to stop and it navigates you to it, so it's great. But you go to these little towns in the middle of Northern California and you have a half hour to walk around and you discover these amazing places. I just loved it. And I found some of the most beautiful places I've ever been to just by stopping and going for a walk while my car was charging. So, love it. The other thing, the battery. So after 5 years, I had 105,000 kilometers on it, and the battery health was between 96 and 97% of the original range. So not a concern. I see constantly these articles on Facebook about, somebody had to replace their battery every 5 years and it's $26,000. It's not the case. The battery is warranted for, I think, 8 years, I believe. So you're not going to get stuck with that. And then the repairs. So I had a few. I got a camera upgrade, a computer upgrade, control arm. Those things were all done under warranty. My warranty ran out about 3 years, actually like a month after the pandemic started, so that kind of sucked. So all of my out of warranty repairs, I had the air conditioner, a door handle motor, battery coolant heater. That's something you're not going to do in a gas car, but so about $2,500 for all of the repairs that I had to do on the car outside of warranty. And then there's the regular maintenance, windshield, tires. I mean, those are things you're going to do in any car. So then 5 years in, we bought a new one. So we reset the clock. Of course, we bought another Tesla. So we went from the Model S to the Model Y. And in the picture in the bottom there, I have two boys. They just turned 15 this week, and we made a cake. when we were waiting for delivery of each of our cars, so they grew a little bit. They're standing on chairs in the 2017 pictures. So bonus, you can make your own fuel. Can't do that with other kinds of cars. So we got solar panels on our house about a year ago, and it's just the greatest thing. I do have the Powered by the Sun license plate holder on my car. So one of the most interesting things about buying an EV in 2016 is I've gotten to witness this change in the narrative and in the population over the last 6 years. So back in, the first kind of 1 to 3 years that I had the car, these are all quotes of things that people actually said to me. They'll never work without government subsidies. Well, fun fact, neither do gas cars. There's no engine to heat the cabin. Someone actually said this to me, but when you say, have you ever used a hairdryer, it ends the conversation very quickly. And the most common one, that they don't work in cold weather. This is the best winter car I've ever had. So you're going to hear that a lot here. And now the comments that I get are, how far can you actually go on a charge? So do they really not need maintenance? Do you use a lot more power in the winter, or is it just a little? So these are very educated questions. These are not just random statements of something that you saw on TikTok. So it's been great seeing this shift happen. And my favorite one is, and it's usually from the younger generation, that's going to be my next car. So it's been fantastic to see this change. If you're wondering why, this is my opinion of why. This is global EV sales as a portion of registrations throughout the world. And the little graph on the side there, that's an S-curve with exponential growth. I feel like we're right at the start of an exponential growth S-curve. So why is the narrative changing? Well, the more EVs there are out there, the more likely you are to know someone that has one, and to know that those things that you're seeing on social media, that's not been their experience. So you're asking these questions, and all of a sudden it's not this crazy, scary thing anymore. It's something that maybe you want to think about doing. So all of this just gives me a lot of hope. Thank you for listening to me. I'm really excited. I'm so glad to see everyone here, and I think the future is very bright. So thank you.
Thank you, Angie. So our final presentation before we get into questions is coming from Jane Flower. So with over 2 decades of experience in brand, marketing, and community engagement, Jane leads AMA's corporate responsibility and environmental sustainability initiatives, including the organization's support of climate action and EVs. As Vice President of Corporate Purpose, Jane helps ensure that AMA's values and an almost century-long commitment to protecting our communities and nearly 1 million members is baked into every policy, process, and initiative the organization undertakes. Jane.
Thank you very much, and thanks so much for having us here. I couldn't decide when I was on my way here whether it would be a surprise to have AMA speaking at the EV Expo or an expectation, because as a nearly 100-year-old brand, I'm thinking people might be like, oh, they probably only service gas vehicles, but as a 100-year-old mobility organization, an expectation that we will also service EVs. So, as I said, as some of you know, AMA is nearly a 100-year-old organization that has, since its inception, been fully committed to protecting Albertans on the road and to be mobile as they choose. But what you may not know, I think I just activated the laser pointer. What you may not know is that we've also been focused on the environment since 1972, investing ourselves in helping Albertans improve their mobility to do better for the climate. I don't know if you can darn, you can't see that image. There's a beautiful old 1975 station wagon pulling a trailer behind it that was our very first mobile emissions testing unit that we launched in the late 1970s. Against the backdrop of safe mobility and the climate, you can imagine how excited we are to be here at the Expo today and to share our commitment to protecting Albertans' mobility no matter how you choose to drive. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why this is important to us, and then I'm going to introduce you to a whole bunch of services that we offer that may help address the point in time where you said you test the limits of the vehicle, etc. Yeah, we can help you out when that happens. For any of you who don't know, and I can't imagine there are many, AMA is a membership organization. We have driver education, registries, insurance, so all the kind of stuff that you'll need, even driving an EV, as well as a significant rewards program that allows members to cash in on discounts and savings. But far and away, we are best known for roadside assistance, tows, boosts, door unlocks, etc. We've evolved our key services throughout time to meet the emerging needs of our members, and as we head into the world of EVs, that commitment remains the same. As the Vice President of Corporate Purpose, I spend all my waking hours thinking about how we as an organization not only advance our strategic initiatives, but stay true to our why, which is really to protect what matters most to our members. And we've heard from my two co-panelists, what matters to us changes all the time. And so we have to live up to the promise that we make to our members to be there to serve them. And what matters most goes far beyond products and services. It's really about taking care of this beautiful place we call home and holding ourselves accountable to future generations, leaving a legacy we can all be proud of. AMA has always been a purpose-led organization. Our origin story actually comes from a group of Albertans who banded together back in the day to advocate for things like highway signage and license plates. A group of people aligned by common priorities and values focused on protecting one another and protecting our great province. And as I look around this room, I can't help but think, I feel like we started like this is starting. As products and services, the products and services we offer may have changed over time, but our organizational priorities have not. They include personal mobility, climate, and the communities in which we live, play, and work. When we look at the importance of EVs to the driving population in Alberta, we see all of these things coming into play. As we said in the introduction, AMA is a sizable organization. In fact, 1 out of every 3 Alberta households is already a member, so there's just about 1 million of us. That gives us a unique opportunity to reach out and connect people, organizations, and stakeholders around issues that matter, and that's why we're here today. AMA offers one piece of a network that can inform, educate, support, and inspire people around electric-powered driving future. Supporting EVs is part of our ongoing commitment to protect not only mobility, but also the planet. And it's a priority that our members have voiced their support for loudly and clearly. We do surveys every year where we ask members where their heads are at with regards to any number of issues, and we have seen the answers to both of these questions tick up significantly over the last little while. In our 2021 survey, we probed a number of issues related to mobility and climate, as you can see, and our members told us in no uncertain terms that they are concerned about climate change and invested in looking for ways to change their own behaviors in terms of sustainable living and mobility. Just over a quarter of them told us they're considering an EV for their next purchase, which is why it doesn't really surprise me there's so many folks out here. As I said earlier, AMA has always been committed to supporting Alberta mobility choices, and our commitment to our members who drive EVs is no different. So, what does a day in the life of an EV-owning AMA member look like, and what kind of supports can we provide as part of membership? All being well, most driving days will be uneventful. But if you do find yourself in a pickle, roadside assistance is our core business and what we are best known for. We have an army of flat decks that can, of course, tow you, but we're also piloting emergency roadside charging here in Edmonton. So if you really get stuck and you really can't make it to the next charging station, we can come and help you out. We have onboard charging devices on some of our battery trucks already that can give you a boost of juice at the side of the road to help you get to the nearest charging station. And starting in 2023, and I was just admiring a few of them before we got on stage, a number of our battery trucks, including our EV charging trucks, will themselves be electric powered as we begin adding Ford Lightning EVs into our light-duty service fleet. Along with all of that is, of course, all the specialized training our service vehicle operators need to have to be able to provide you with the highly skilled service you've come to expect from AMA. And speaking of training, we were talking about this earlier, your two boys and many of the sweet little munchkins that are here today will never drive anything other than an electric vehicle. We recognize that as Alberta's largest driving school, many of our students will spend the vast majority of their driving lives in an EV. So we're introducing EVs into our driver education fleet. We're just getting ready to roll out our Ford Mach-E and our Hyundai Kona in the Edmonton region, with many more to come at locations around the province. We've also revamped content in our curriculum to ensure that our in-classroom and in-car driver training builds competence and confidence in our EV driving students. Another leg of mobility, of course, is insurance, where you'll find that we offer discounts to folks who are driving hybrid and EV vehicles. It's an important part of an ongoing commitment to supporting and encouraging drivers who choose sustainable mobility. And finally, because we know that when our members come to visit us, they rely on us to have all the things that they need available, we're in the process of installing charging stations at AMA centers around the province. We're going to have 3 in the next few weeks, with all the other centers to follow in 2023. So when you come to do business at our locations, you can plug in and, as a member, benefit from a little bit of extra free juice. You heard me say earlier that AMA's approach to topics that matter to traveling Albertans has always been to make the best use of the one piece of the puzzle we have, and that is scale and voice. So we're committed to helping amplify the conversation around electric mobility and provide information about sustainable transportation through a variety of channels and engagements. On our website, you'll find an EV buyer's guide that will walk you through a series of questions about your lifestyle. It's designed to help you narrow your choices and determine which EV is right for you. This fall, we welcomed the Electric Vehicle Association of Alberta to our annual Fall Car Care events to talk with members about EV mobility. It's part of our commitment to connect our members with subject matter experts who can speak directly to issues of interest to prospective EV buyers. We are in production on our Sustainable Transportation podcast series, where we'll be talking to all kinds of guests, including some folks here, if you see people wandering around in AMA t-shirts with a microphone. All kinds of topics related to electric mobility and e-bikes. So watch for that later in the fall. And finally, coming this spring and summer, we'll be hosting a number of events around the province designed to increase engagement and interest in EVs and connect members with community experts. Albertans have long counted on us to guide them to the best possible information and content about all aspects of mobility, and our commitment to EVs is no different. And one last thing, I just mentioned e-bikes. So if two-wheeled mobility is more your speed, AMA also provides roadside assistance for e-bikes, including services like delivering air for flat tires, tightening loosened parts, or making minor adjustments. And in the worst case scenario, if the bike breaks down, we'll pick you up and the bike up and take you to a repair facility. All of that is available just using your regular service call entitlements. It's no different. There's not an EV membership. It's just a membership in the club. And to be clear, all of our levels of coverage cover EVs. So if you have an EV and a regular gas-powered vehicle, your membership covers both, and your bike, electric or pedal-powered. Our whole reason for being is to protect our members and their mobility, to ensure that if anything goes wrong, we are one call away. We are in some ways just at the beginning of our very own journey in the EV space. We're committed to continuing to build out additional products and services and support for EV owners, advancing important advocacy efforts around road safety issues related to EVs, and to continuing to offer in every way the same kind of trusted service that Albertans have come to expect from AMA as the future of mobility continues to evolve. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. So, a lot of information shared. I'm sure that there are a lot of questions. So Steph, again, is in the audience. So if anyone has a question, if you can just raise your hand, Steph will come around to you. Oh, perfect. We have one over here.
Hi. My question is for the lady who imported the vehicle from Quebec. Actually, I own a Nissan Leaf 2015. So how would you go about importing the vehicle from another province since Alberta is so not very good?
Well, do your research. I ended up buying my car from a Hyundai dealership. So I would look for a dealership, definitely look around, see what your options are, and then research shipping options. Mine came via train because that was the most economical option. Took about a month for me to get, but definitely do your research and see what's available because there are lots of options available. And there's more inventory in other provinces, so it's definitely worth looking at. And costs are lower.
Was it a new vehicle or used?
It was a used vehicle, yeah, from 2019. I felt confident buying from a dealership, more so than from a private owner. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Perfect. Next question.
Yeah, my question is, how much would you say less range do you typically get in the winter compared to the summertime?
So it really depends. I know EVAA has some really good stats on their website about that. I find on the coldest days, because of course that's when you're paying the most attention, I'm like when it's minus kind of like mid 30s, I'm about half. So I'm getting half the kilometers that I normally would. It goes down about 10% for every 10 degrees that it goes below zero. So, most of the time we're sitting somewhere between, 0 and minus 10. So you're losing maybe 10% of range. Yeah, it's not too bad.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone? I know, Angie, before we came on stage, you said that you could talk for forever. So why don't I go over to you?
Okay. What do you want to know about? I love this stuff. There's a reason I'm the president of the Owners Club, because I could just talk about this stuff for days. I think, so many people are scared of the technology that they just don't even try it. But I think once people actually start looking into it, all you have to do is just put it into YouTube. Really, look at some videos that some real owners have put up. These cars are not what people are worried about. They're fantastic in the winter. I think that's probably the biggest misconception. The battery pack is on the bottom of the car, right? Because it's arguably probably the biggest part of the car, well, the most substantial. And so because the battery's on the bottom of the car, the weight is evenly distributed and it's low. So your traction and your stability on icy roads is fantastic. And you add some winter tires into the mix, these cars are great. And people are always questioning that. When you have a traditional ICE car, internal combustion engine, you've got that big engine in the front, and so you're kind of pulling the rest of the car after the engine, and the weight is just not evenly distributed. If you really want to go down a YouTube wormhole, look at the crash tests of EVs. They can't roll them. It's because the weight is so low. They're very safe. And, I'll speak for Tesla. I know that safety is their number one priority. So, these vehicles are performing better in crash tests, not only in terms of like rolling, but in all regards. So I think it's definitely something that people don't realize about these cars. So
I also think another thing about winter driving is you get immediate heat. When you jump in your car in minus 40 degree, minus 30 degree weather, you're getting heat automatically. You're not waiting for your car to warm up or waiting for the heat to kick in.
Yeah.
It's immediate.
Yeah, and you don't need to open the garage door to warm it up either.
No, you don't.
You keep all that heat in.
That's right.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So we were talking before we came on stage about driving and learning to drive and what the differences are
Yeah.
in driving EV versus ICE vehicles. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the first time you drove, the things that you noticed most?
Well, the first time I drove an EV was a Performance Model S. It was the fastest car I've ever driven. It was ridiculous. And I used to describe it to people as, you know, when you're in the plane and it's taking off and you get sucked into your seat, it's like that. And then I got my car and I took off in a plane and I was like, this is boring. Like, it's so much better than that. So, and like we were talking about, I've got a pair of boys. They just turned 15 on Tuesday. So, of course, we're, you know, talking about learning to drive. And they will never probably drive a gas car. They're going to learn to drive on an electric car, and it drives very differently than a gas car. So, you know, this is where I think it's great what you guys are doing. Because if my boys learn to drive on an electric car and then they come and they have to drive a gas car, it's completely different, and you know, it might not go well. It might not go well either way, but we'll see.
I have a personal question. So as someone who does not own an EV, and per season you have to do seasonal maintenance on your car, what does that look like when you own an EV? Especially as there's so much discussion around what they're like in the winter seasons. What should they expect?
Maintenance is minimal. The most important thing is getting winter tires for your vehicle for safety, but beyond that, it is minimal. You're concerned about brakes, brake wear, but not really. It's pretty minimal, like you're not concerned about maintenance or, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different, really. The things that you need to do on an EV, it's tires, you know, it's making sure you have wiper fluid that won't freeze. It's really no different, except we don't have to worry about the different levels of the oil in the car. We don't have to worry about that. We don't care. There's no oil. Yeah.
Perfect. So we have a few minutes left. Were there any other questions that have come up from anyone in the audience? Oh, perfect.
Thank you. I have a question about charging in public charging stations. I don't have an electrical vehicle. I was curious, like I heard that you can only, like if you drive a Tesla, you can only charge in certain spots, or if you don't have a Tesla, you cannot charge in a Tesla. Can you please help us understand how that works if you don't have a Tesla and if you have a Tesla? So maybe if you don't, I'll let you distribute the questions between you. Thank you.
So there are specific chargers for Teslas, and then there are other chargers for non-Teslas, and they're widely available. Lots of different places have them.
Yeah, so my day job, I'm a city planner. So I'm the person that if you get me as your file manager, you know you're going to get asked to put solar panels on and to put in EV chargers. So this is something that I deal with every day. So Tesla has their level 3 superchargers. Those are probably the ones you're most familiar with. Those are proprietary chargers. So those are for Tesla only. They do have some level 2 chargers, and they've got a mix that have the universal plug, or other ones have the Tesla plug. And then a lot of the other chargers that you'll see, so Flow has a lot of chargers, ChargePoint, Sun Country, there are a whole bunch of different brands. Those are universal. So Tesla currently, only Teslas can charge on Tesla chargers. They're piloting right now in Europe, especially, opening up the charging network to all brands. So it's something that's going to be coming. There are some kind of technical difficulties just really because of where the charge ports are placed, it's different on all vehicles. So, whereas Teslas have to back into the stall because the charge port is on the back driver's side, if you've got another brand of vehicle that comes in and the charge port is on the front and they pull in, then you've got a vehicle blocking the charge, that the Tesla would have to charge on the other side. So they're kind of working through that. Europe is the test bed right now, but in the next probably 5 years or so, I'm guessing, you're going to see these networks opened up. And I can say from my day job, the charging network is expanding constantly. I mean, if you see construction in a parking lot, it's probably an EV charger, just being honest. So, businesses are starting to realize that you've got a captive audience. If you put a charger in your parking lot, you've got someone that's got nothing to do for half an hour. So they're going to come in and buy a burger or, go shop in your store or whatever. So people are really starting to realize that this is something that they really want to get on board with. So it's great. It's win-win, really.
Well, we're out of time, but I wanted to say thank you all for the great discussion and as well for coming out and being part of the event.
Thank you.
Thank you.